You all for being with us today. I will now call the February 17th meeting of the Sports Authority to order. The meeting was canceled due to anticipated inclement weather and illness last month. So hopefully everyone is back healthy and feeling well today. I'd like to thank Bridgestone Arena and the Nashville Predators for hosting us. We look forward to getting an update on the Ford Ice Center later in this meeting. So I will take on consideration of the minutes. You've had the minutes from the November meeting since last month. So are there any questions or comments?
Recommend approval as submitted. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Motion passes. Okay, with that, we'll go right into our Title IX. Monica?
So today's Title IX Spotlight is certainly no stranger to the Sports Authority and to many of you in this room. And so we're so excited to have Teresa Phillips, our friend and former, she'll always be TSU Athletic Director, is with us today. And so we welcome her to the meeting. Don Deering is going to read the resolution for Teresa this morning. And then Chair Bender is going to interview her Vanderbilt teammate. Don, you
Okay, welcome to the Metropolitan Nashville Davidson County Sports Authority, Ms. Teresa Phillips, and we're honored that we're your presence here today. Resolution honoring Teresa Phillips, Tennessee State University Athletic Director. Whereas the Metropolitan Sports Authority of Nashville and Davidson County is participating in a year-long celebration of the 50th anniversary of Title IX on June 23, 2022, and desires to recognize the Nashvillians who have made not only a significant and long-lasting impact as an athlete, but also have opened doors, removed barriers, encouraged participation in sports for girls and women, and whereas the Chattanooga native Teresa Phillips developed a love for the game of basketball while playing at Chattanooga Girls Preparatory School, and whereas Phillips went on to earn an academic scholarship to Vanderbilt University, win 3 letters as a member of the women's basketball program, was the first black female student athlete at Vanderbilt, and in 1980 was named a Lady Commodore Athlete of the Year and won the Nashville Civitan Sportsmanship Award. And whereas Phillips, after graduating with a bachelor's degree in economics and working in corporate America, was recruited to come back to Vanderbilt as a part-time assistant women's basketball coach, where she served from 1981 to 1984, and helped her alma mater win the National Invitation Tournament in 1984. And whereas in 1984, Phillips was hired as the head women's basketball coach at Fisk University, amassing a record of 62-38 in 5 years and winning 2 women's intercollegiate athletic conference titles, and was named WIAC Coach of the Year twice. Whereas Phillips served Tennessee State University as head women's basketball coach from 1989 to 2000, guiding the team to back-to-back Ohio Valley Conference regular season and tournament championships in 1993 and 1994. In 1994 and 95, leading the 93 and 94 squad to its first ever NCAA tournament appearance, earning her master's degree in education from TSU in 1999, receiving the USA Today National Coach of the Year in 1990 and OVC Coach of the Year honors 3 times, and winning 144 games as head coach. And whereas Phillips was named Tennessee State University Director of Athletics in 2002, a tenure that saw TSU win 12 OVC championships, 5 indoor track and field championships, 3 outdoor track and field championships, 2 volleyball titles, and 1 women's basketball championship. And whereas Phillips faithfully served TSU for 31 years as a coach, administrator, and director of athletics before retiring in 2020, became the first woman to coach the NCAA Division I men's basketball game in 2003, was named one of the 101 most influential minorities in sports by ESPN that same year, was named as one of the elite 8 legends in women's basketball in Tennessee during the 2014 NCAA Women's Final Four, and was inducted into the Vanderbilt Hall of Fame in 2017, and the Ohio Valley Conference Hall of Fame in 2021. Be it therefore resolved that the Metropolitan Sports Authority of Nashville, Davidson County, as part of this celebration of the 5th anniversary of Title IX, honors and recognizes Teresa Phillips for her contribution to women's sports at the local, state, and national levels. I should have said, Miss Teresa Phillips, this is your life.
I need that for my obituary. I don't want to leave.
Well, I told you I wouldn't mess it up, so.
We do have a video that is about to start.
I've always said there are very few women who could coach a men's team, one of which is, in my opinion, Pat Summitt. But Teresa Phillips did do that.
Wow, I would probably say, when you look at your career and look at maybe one of the lowest times and then some of the highest times, that would probably still go down as my lowest time here at Tennessee State. When that circumstance situation happened with Nola Richardson and the basketball assistant coaches and those kind of things coming into Gentry Center, obviously armed with a threat to his assistant coach, we having to really sit him down, and then of course following right up with the assistant coach who was the interim being suspended.
To step out from behind the desk as an AD and go to courtside, coach them in a couple of practices and take them to Clarksville for a really difficult game, and to coach them well in that game. They lost, but they played better than, frankly, they had played most of the year. That says a lot about Teresa as someone who understands the game, but more importantly, understands leadership.
Leadership sometimes has to just, to me, step out on something that may be unknown. Sometimes, you don't really think of some consequences, and I don't know that there were negative consequences when it became a big deal, but I wanted those young men to feel really safe, and I wanted them to have a mature person in their midst. We only had a very young assistant coach left at that point, and there were just some controversies going on, so I just wanted to make sure and ensure that that next game went fine, went well, and it did.
It was very intense. Everybody was getting after it because she told everybody, we're not going to tolerate nothing but the best. So we're going to practice. Of course, she implemented a few things, and she told us that she wasn't going to change the things we were doing because she hadn't really been at practices, but everything we did was going to be given at 100% effort, and that's the only thing she was going to sell.
It wasn't a very good team, frankly, but I remember going to that game, and Dave Luce, coach at Austin Peay, was on the opposite sideline, and there were a couple of times you looked over there, and Luce just sort of had this look on his face like, this isn't the team we saw on tape. They're playing better defensively. I think she threw in a couple of zone traps that threw them off. Teresa is just very talented at whatever she does.
Teresa just is one of those people who's had a phenomenal career, from the time she played at Vanderbilt. Then she moved on and recruited. That's where we got to know each other. We recruited against each other for so many years, and she brought some incredible players into the Vanderbilt system.
Really, my very first year was a club sport, so it wasn't even intercollegiate. So we went from that to actually being intercollegiate, one uniform, no warm-up. Dressed in the PE locker room, drove on vans with the coach and assistant coach driving. So, it's come a long way, baby. I think we only played maybe 16 games, things like that. But I do remember, getting beaten pretty badly by UT, maybe my junior year or something like that. So, some of those memories fade when they weren't great memories. By the time I was a senior, we were signing people like Sheila Johansson, who was the top player in the state, just a big time basketball player who we've kind of rekindled rekindled our friendship lately, but just a big-time player coming out of Mount Juliet High School. We were actually signing probably some of the top players in the state, just in the state now, by the time I graduated. When the major schools decided to buy into women's basketball, I think that they did it at the reasonable, quick pace that it needed to be done at. I really do. It was rather quick. I think we've slowed down actually now. It's so fun now to think back on it. It was still some great days. I mean, riding the van doesn't sound very exciting, but to see how far you've come, our program has come from riding in the van to knowing that they fly and go, pretty much where they want, doing what they want, that their locker room is equitable to the men's. I got to see that as it just in the infancy stages all the way to now. So that's been very, very fun. When I came back and coached at Vanderbilt as an assistant coach, I really was still a full-time broker in the insurance and annuity and benefits division of Providence. So I kind of hustled 2 jobs at that time, but I had a love of it. I couldn't get it out my craw, just enjoying sports.
She's the epitome of strength. She sets an example. When I played for her and she would talk about these things about being strong and being determined and never let things, you could tell that she really believed that. It was not something she was just regurgitating or something that she was just saying. She truly believed that, and she lived that way. And you would see her, she would stand up for her team. And if you were wrong, she would tell you you were dead wrong. Everything was on the surface. You never had to worry about her saying one thing and living another way. She was exactly the way she was all the time. So when you have somebody that believes in what they're telling you, you have no choice but to buy into that and live that way, because that's the way it is.
For a woman to step into an athletic leadership position like athletics director, given some of her predecessors, was a tough sell, but Teresa's able to pull it off. Leading that athletic program out there is one of the biggest challenges I'm aware of in college athletics. It's a different animal, and it's very, very challenging. I think Teresa's pulled it off. Again, it's such a tough balancing act. Financially, it's always a challenge, but she's somehow managed to sort of pull all these parts together and make it work.
It was just out of necessity. Here we had several turnovers of ADs. I had some of the background to do the administrative work and had actually become an associate AD over academics while I was still coaching. And so it kind of was accidental. I was somewhat pushed into it. I think having my children at that time to help me buy into going on and doing it.
She has a legacy at Tennessee State for sure. She won the first 2 OVCs for the women, actually the only 2, I believe. She coached great players like Carolyn Aldridge, Connie Swift, Tess, that's in the staff right now. They all played for her and had the respect for her. And to bring positive to that season with her being the first coach to coach the males, I think that helped a lot. And now she's moved on, of course, still the athletic director, and she's done a good job as athletic director at Tennessee State. So I believe she has a great legacy, and she will go down probably in Tennessee State Hall of Fame for things she's done at Tennessee State.
I look back still, that was just a decision that I didn't think very much of. I didn't think it would be made a big deal. And all of a sudden it was a big deal. So, it was just not intended to make history. I think people make history like Katana Starks, who was a coach here at Tennessee State, who actually coached swimming, men's swimming, and men's golf years and years before that. So, those are kind of women who made a difference and made history, not me.
So Teresa, if you'll join me over at the table. I'm bringing my Kleenex. She can try to.
I'm a gangster. I can. I'll stop crying.
So,
Soft gangster.
yes. So after you've heard the proclamation and you've seen the video, I think they've addressed every single question that I wrote down here. So I think you're going to learn a lot about what Teresa and I used to do at Vanderbilt. You know, we are honored to have you here today, and I do celebrate you. You know, you have represented women in sports for over 4 decades.
Whew.
Player, coach, AD, Hall of Famer, and now NFL mom.
Yeah.
So that's all awesome, right? And so we appreciate your being here. But maybe we can take some of the topics that were mentioned and kind of dive in a little bit.
Okay.
Like, it's amazing what I've learned about you that I didn't know, even though I've known you for over 40 years. So during this process, I had to Google her. And I was like, I didn't know that about Teresa. And so I learned a lot. So you were the first African-American female student athlete at Vanderbilt. I came a couple of years behind you. But my journey was a little different from yours.
She's trying to say she's younger than me on the slide.
Now, what I was really saying is that I got an athletic scholarship and she got an academic scholarship.
No,
at Vanderbilt. That's the way that worked. She was smart. But tell us a little bit about how you got to the women's program, what it was like when you arrived on campus to be on that team.
Well, you know, it was non-existent. You know, they had a club sport, which is, you know, an introductory way for a university to then maybe add it as an intercollegiate sport. So, you know, we played a few club games my first year. I just wandered into the Gentry, not the Gentry, what's the Vanderbilt State? Anyway, I just wandered in there. They were playing basketball. So I just hooked up, played, and that kind of thing. But again, that first year or two, when they did become intercollegiate, my sophomore year, I might have mentioned on there, we had one uniform. And I mean one. You washed your own uniform. We dressed in the PE locker room with, you know, where people had their locks on their lockers. And there wasn't a lot of PE at Vanderbilt, but so the room was about this big. You know, we rode on vans. And just recently, Vanderbilt refurbished or renovated their women's basketball locker room.
It's amazing.
Okay, it's penthouse. It's penthouse, you know, and we were in the PE locker room. So, you know, we were just playing, again, for the love of playing. You know, we weren't aware, really. We knew, because we were friends with some of the guys on the men's team, we knew they were riding on nice buses and flying when they needed to. But, you know, we just didn't know that we deserved any, not deserved, but things like that were just not available to women at that time. And so we weren't whining about it. Most of us didn't come to Vanderbilt to play sports. We came for the academic side of it, and the sports was just something we loved.
And that's one of the things that I really admire, because my education was based on getting that athletic scholarship. Mm-hmm. But you had options, so you just absolutely loved the game. And what I learned is that in high school, you actually competed in several sports. Mm-hmm. So you have a pretty strong sports background. Mm-hmm. But when I thought about interviewing you today, I was reminded of what it was like to be teammates, mm-hmm. and what things were like during that time. And you touched on it a little bit. But, man, that was truly a case of the have and have-nots. You had to love the game. I remember just not having a locker room, or, us having to practice at 8 o'clock at night after the guys finished, or all the food lines are closed. What was that like for you?
Again,
you had some good times, too, though.
I just think when you're young and you're happy, and you have your objectives that you have, which for us was, even and for you went on an athletic scholarship, but you came with the objective to get that Vanderbilt degree also. And so we just didn't worry about it. Yeah. We just dealt with it. And I think it has made us be who we are. Now, I don't advocate that women should continue to just have to go through a struggle to then become strong women. I'm so very thankful that this 50 years of Title IX has brought us to today. But again, I really don't have negative thoughts or sadness about my career at Vanderbilt, my life at Vanderbilt. It's some great and fun times. There are a lot of stories that Kathy and I can't really tell you guys because she would not probably be the chair of the sports authority anymore. Because, but we got to live, we got to do, and we still did have a lot of experiences. One of the things that you brought up to me was one of the experiences, and I think some Title IX and for women of color, Title IX, we have two issues that we've had to be challenged by, and that's being a person of color too. And while we were students at Vanderbilt and playing on the women's basketball team, we reminded ourselves of an incident down in Mississippi when we were all coming in to eat after the game, gonna head back on those vans all the way back up to Nashville from Mississippi. And we sat and we were just talking. You know how you talk, waiting for the waitress to come wait on you. And so we were just talking and we were just having fun, totally oblivious to the fact that the rest of our teammates and the other tables had been served, had taken their order, and their food had arrived, and they were actually eating, and we hadn't even been waited on. And one of us mentioned it to our coach. He got the manager over as a male, white guy, and he told him, he said, well, the two ladies won't go over there and serve them because they're black. And we had an assistant, it was tough, because we were just so dumb, we didn't really realize.
Like you said, we were young.
The real world. And we had an assistant coach, Pat Moran, bless her. She died in September. She was a teacher at Harper Hall, and she worked part-time at Vanderbilt as our assistant coach. And the coach was going to just kind of try to work it out with him because the guy said, well, I'll go wait on them. I'll take their order. And Pat Moran, and I'm going to beg, she did this and said, heck no. She said, we're all leaving. Get up. Everybody in the restaurant looked and we looked, cause, and she, people trying to grab a piece of chicken to come on, to take to the bus. For real. But she was like, and she said, we ain't paying, take it up with Vanderbilt University. She did that, and we were just so, that was painful though. That was a little pain with that one. But also we had some pride that our coach said, no, we're not going to eat. No, you're not going to, you can't fix this. We're leaving here. And so we had those experiences too to bear being women and then being women of color.
Yeah. And I think that experience, it really did create a really closer bond for the team. And that's what teams do. We had some really great times. And one of the things about traveling on these vans for sometimes, we would ride all night and get back to campus at 8 o'clock in the morning and take exams, right? So it was pretty tough. But one of the good things was we actually got to know each other very well. So Teresa, when she finished up playing, she went away for a little while, but she came back as our assistant coach. And, we were partners in crime, so I had real issues with her knowing all the tricks and the trades, right? So as a coach, what was it like coming back and actually transitioning from player, teammate, friend to someone who was in a leadership role?
Well, it didn't bother me because because I would tear you guys up. I saw Jackie Cowan, who was a great player at Vanderbilt, at the Hall of Fame about 2 weeks ago, and she was telling the new Vanderbilt women's coach, this is the woman that ran the heck out of me one day when I was showing out in practice. And I was only a few years older than Jackie. I didn't care. You're going to show out and clown, I'm going to get you. And the male coach was too scared to get him because he thought, he was more scared of Kathy and the women of color on the team than I was. And I was like, they're just playing you. Don't do that. I think we had one game. I'm going to tell on Kathy. We had one game. And it was pregame. It was time to come into the we had a piece of a locker room then because I'd graduated. And so, they were sitting in the bathroom and stuff like that. And I went to the bathroom to tell the ladies, come on, the coach is ready to talk to you, I went in the bathroom. I was like, what is going on here? I smell smoke. What is going on? Her and a couple of
I was only in there.
She
I was
was
not smoking. I was only in the room. I didn't inhale.
I was like, what the world? Y'all don't get it. here and get in here, you know. So being a young assistant coach is rough. If you can make it be coaching some of the people that you played with, and you probably can kind of do that as far as in your business world, you become the manager over somebody your buddies with. That, you know, you're going to have to either take a stand or you're going to get suckered the whole time. So I took a stand with them, but we still friends. We're still friends.
We're still friends.
We're still friends. I couldn't run her anyway because Kathy could run for 10 days. If you tell her to run right now, I promise you she's going to beat you because she's not going to lose.
I had a great high school conditioning coach.
Yeah.
I never had to get in shape for Vanderbilt.
She never did.
So,
Never
Teresa,
understood
you
that.
went on and you coached this university
Yeah.
and records there, and you went on and coached 11 years
Yes.
at Tennessee State University. What would be a couple of the highlights of those coaching days?
Wow, FIS was very interesting because FIS was going through the FIS challenges. You know, when I was at Vanderbilt, FIS was kind of an elite school. I mean, it was a school, it was one of the top HBCUs, but they had fallen on kind of tough times by the time I went over there to coach them. And so we were coaching with some difficult situations, but some great extraordinary students and great young women and men, because, you know, those teams, men and women's basketball, you're just kind of close, you're kind of family. And so I always say I got my education at Vanderbilt. I mean, I got my degree at Vanderbilt, but I got my education at Fisk. I learned a whole lot about real life and real dealing with people and each other and stuff at Fisk. And then on to Tennessee State, it was a great 31 years at TSU. It's some great people at Tennessee State. A lot of challenges at Tennessee State. But I loved it. I did it for the love of the people there, of our students. You know, my highlight is always going to be my students. I hate going to graduations. You know, I know just kind of some people, like, you hate going to weddings or something. You know, a lot of men do. I mean, most of us women love to go to weddings, but I hate going to graduations. But and I had to go to graduation as the athletics director especially, and as a coach, but every time I got to get to graduation, it's the best day of my life. Wow. And I could cry right now. It's the best day of my life. Because you see young people, some of whom you did not think were going to make it, actually go, and then some who were just great, and come across that stage. Just in just that pride and that excitement. And I tell everybody, you know, why work on a college campus if you don't care about people getting educated and bettering their lives? I believe you're a better person just going to college if you don't even get the degree.
Yeah. So that's funny because one of my last questions, my wrap-up question was you spent 19 years total as AD. 2 of those was as interim AD at Tennessee State. And so as I read more about your accomplishments and what you had done throughout the course of your sports career, I saw that you have always had passion around student athletes and the education and completion of that degree. And so as we wrap up, are there any closing thoughts about that? Or?
Well, you know, Kathy, that's what it's all been about. You know, from me, you know, neither one of my parents went to college. Neither one of my parents, and my mother's deceased. The 2 smartest people I know, though. 2 strongest, the 2 most honest people I know.
I knew them.
Yeah. And I could say the same about her parents. It's, you know, and so, but they believed in us getting educated. And they were willing to make this sacrifice. I went to a school, you might have heard him say, Girls Preparatory School in Chattanooga, Tennessee. You might be familiar with it if you're a Tennessean. And I was the second black girl to go there. My mom worked as a maid for one of the girls that went there. And her mom asked my mother, where's Teresa going to school? When I was graduating from 6th grade. And my mom said, well, she wants to go to GPS, you know. And I'm going to pay for her to take the test because she just wants to know that she could get accepted. And that lady got Mrs. Lucy Thatcher. And she got together and got the money for me to go to GPS. And when you got to pass that forward. I'm just
Yes,
leaving it at
yes,
that.
that's
You got to
amazing.
pass it
You
forward.
do.
Whatever has happened for you and in your life,
it's just your responsibility to pass it forward. That's all.
Well, I will say that you've done an amazing job doing that, and I'm just so happy that we're celebrating you today. I'm so happy that I'm a part of the celebration. And before I let you go, you were scheduled to be with us last month, but you had, your NFL son was injured. Would you give us an update on Kyle?
He's the most unlucky kid I've ever seen. But he's doing great, he's blessed. He's a tough kid. I'm going up there next week. He's gonna hopefully get better enough to go down and train down in Florida for the rest of this off season and stuff like that. But boy, being an NFL mom is hard, especially if your kid gets hurt 2 years in a row. So he's doing great though, and thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
Well, thank you for being with us,
Yeah.
and let's give Coach Teresa Phillips another round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, change hats. So, thank you again, Coach Phillips, for being here. So now we're going to move into our executive director's report. Monica?
Well, thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to keep this really quick. You have the agenda before you. Are there any questions about it? No. I did share with the Finance Committee earlier, and I will say this for those of you who were not there, that the CMA has exercised its second option to extend the license agreement for use of Nissan Stadium. For the CMA Music Festival, there is no action for the board to take. It's CMA's option to extend, but just wanted you to know that that happens, and that has happened, and that extension will commence on June 1st of this year. And then I also wanted to introduce everyone to Valda Barksdale, who joined our team last week, and we're very excited to have her on board. She comes most recently from the Tennessee Board of Regents, and we are excited to have her. So if you haven't had a chance, please introduce yourself to her. Any questions? That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. Well, now Margaret Bim, chair of the Women's Sports Ad Hoc Committee, will give us her report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You did a great job interviewing Teresa Phillips. You could tell your close connection after 4 decades. Quite a story about the restaurant, though, I have to say. I had not heard that before. So
we had some very good stories.
Yes.
Too. We didn't get to those, but yeah.
So I want to thank everybody who was here at 10 o'clock to hear Brian Slater's executive summary of a 250-page report. If you're looking for additional information, I can guarantee you there's a lot of information to supplement what he had today. And I certainly do appreciate what CA Icon has given to this project, Brian Slater, Dan Barrett, Jamie Sullivan, and all the support, especially the support of the Sports Authority staff and how they've helped this board get to this point. So what I thought I would do before I call Brian up, Brian, just so I'm telegraphing this to you, I thought I would just ask the board, I just want to give you a sense of maybe how this report will go. The ad hoc committee met last week, and we saw a presentation. We've actually met twice since the full board met. We met in January and February and have piecemeal seen this report. You've got the full picture today. And so we do have a recommendation for the full board. But I thought the first place to start would be just to see if there are any comments or questions. Brian, why don't you come on up in case there is a question from anybody on the board. Then I have a few comments about the report too. So I'll open it up for any comments or questions from anybody on the board.
I have a question.
Kim?
Thank you, Brian, for the report and the information. On the economic impact, we're a sales tax-driven state, and, those numbers are of particular interest as we're talking about trying to promote and recruit an additional league to maximize the use of our facilities. Curious about sports betting and if any of those numbers were factored in when you're talking about just different drivers that a new league could offer?
Yeah, so the analysis did not consider any type of impacts from sports betting. I think, as you're probably aware, that sports betting, the proliferation of it across the United States has become very, very common. In Tennessee here, it was obviously passed a couple of years ago, and there's a 10% tax on it's called betting handle that accrues to the state. So the state would be recipient. As far as I know, the state is recipient of any type of tax revenue. But in terms of our analysis, it really just considered the two buckets of patron spending outside the venue and then team related. So it does not.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Anybody else?
I have a question. First of all, I was thrilled with the comprehensive nature of this report. It was very enlightening and very, very detailed. And I want to ask, specific to the two leagues that you've highlighted most extensively, deploying a women's franchise from either of those would be very different in this city. In the one case, on the soccer side, we have a men's team. The WNBA side, we obviously don't. We touched on this a bit last week, but what would be the process to understand historically across the country where those dynamics have been different, what the viability of those franchises has been, and how has it been affected?
Yeah, it's kind of a tough question to answer, only because the ownership group makes such a big difference in the success of these teams, particularly in really competitive markets like Nashville. And I think if it was a local ownership group that was producing a compelling game day experience, that was investing into the team, I think you would see the chances for success to be a lot higher than if it was kind of a passive ownership group, maybe one that was non-local. So it's a tough question to ask, only because there's so many variables that really go into it. That may not be a perfect answer to your question, but I would stress the ownership groups.
So I guess as a follow-up, in your opinion, is that something we should explore, or are you saying that it's just too variable to really nail down for benefit of the committee?
So, Dan, in terms of your question, explore, can you clarify what you mean by explore?
Well, I guess from my perspective, I think this report, like I said, is exceedingly comprehensive, but it does bring up some other questions that I would like to have further information about. And I don't know, I'm getting ahead of the committee here by suggesting what next steps would be, but I'm simply asking, is that something that your organization or an organization like yours could study effectively and deliver a recommendation upon?
Yeah. We assist with this type of thing throughout the country all the time, and we're happy to discuss how we may be able to assist the Sports Authority in subsequent phases.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Other questions? Comments? You all are a lot quieter than the committee last week. Some of you all were asking questions last week with the committee. So, Brian, it's okay if you want to sit down. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, everyone.
So I just want to highlight some things on the report before we go through the recommendations. If y'all would look at tab 4, page 6. We asked CAA Icon to do a market survey and economic impact study and give the information you heard today. And I am very encouraged by the information we have on page 6 and 7, which talks about for both leagues, we have sufficient size to support a team in Nashville, which I think is very important from the marketing point. If you go to page 10, I want to thank the participants in the survey. This was so, and the consultants told us that, having done surveys in various cities, market surveys. It was so impressive how many entities stepped up to help us to do the survey, which I think is one reason we had such a great response. But when you look at page 10, you'll see that Bridgestone Arena, we had the largest number of responses from them, then Vanderbilt, Nashville SC, Tennessee Titans, Nashville Sounds, Nashville Sports Council, Nashville CVC, Lipscomb General. So you can see that our facilities partners in this room were extremely helpful to help us in this, and obviously the colleges and some other institutions in town. But I personally, along with other members of the committee, and I know the staff feels like this, to want to thank our facility partners for stepping up and helping us with this particular part, because the survey was very important, I think, to the consultant's findings. And so I just want to know if there's anything any of you all want to say about this initiative. I know you all are deeply involved. I know that you all have representatives on the advisory committee, which are going to reconvene again, given this report. But is there anything anybody wants to say here from the facilities? You don't have to, but if there is, Bert, great, thanks.
Burke Nahill, CEO of the Titans in Nissan Stadium. Last night, my daughter came home. She's a junior in high school, and we had a conversation about football. The Titans have sponsored a program out in Williamson County as a pilot. We hope to bring it to Davidson County and others, where there's girls flag football programs, hopefully as a sanctioned sport in high school. And it was just awesome. She was talking about being a slot receiver, and she didn't know what that was last week. And so I say that I talk to her all the time. She's very, very proud of being an athlete. She's a soccer player and a track star. Sorry, I added the star, Dad.
That's all right. It's all right, Dad.
Our organization is owned by I believe, one of the best owners in professional sports, who also happens to be a female. So we're in on this. And from the report, I don't think there's any surprise. Our venue is probably the least helpful to actually attract a women's sports league, but whatever we can do to help. By using our network, by using our influence, we are absolutely happy to help take these next steps. The report was phenomenal, and I congratulate the Sports Authority for taking the initiative. But the next steps are where the rubber hits the road, and however we can be helpful, we are ready to be helpful.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I really want to hear more about how your daughter does as a slot receiver. Talk that sports with you. Mary, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. I'd be remiss if I didn't come up here, because obviously soccer was one of the two areas that are identified. As you know, there had been some very, very early conversations that we had entertained, and on behalf of the NSC ownership group, we're certainly, 100% behind this. We support women's sports, whatever they are. Clearly, right now, we do have our hands full with just our new stadium and everything that you'll hear about in a few minutes, but we are also behind this 110%. So please let us know what else we can do.
Thank you, Mary. We're real excited about the opening day. Thank you very much. Sean.
Sean Henry, Bridgestone Arena. Like my partners in the industry, we're in, period. I think we showed that, time and time again, the way we handled the women's SEC tournament, hosting the All-Star game for the NWHL, first time it was ever actually produced in a big venue. We're in, and we will advance those conversations with them too once they're ready for expansion outside of the Northeast. But I think you're going to hear a little bit from J-Bo and our Fort Ice crew that our commitment to girls hockey, girls sports, female sports, women's sports, it's just there. And the proof is what we're doing right now and where we're going. Our skating coach for our NHL team, she's the first female coach for an NHL team. And someone said to us, you should advertise that more. And maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. Ours is about doing the things and just building upon them, building upon them, building upon them. And the result is the launch of our girls programs that Kim Atkins' biggest challenge is, what should her daughter do? Which girls team should she play on? And we only spoke for a few minutes. That's the best question that I've gotten in a long time, because there's multiple choices. And 5 years ago, there were 0 choices. 20 years ago, there was 0. Right. Just like the interview you just did, 45 years ago, it was very different, and the celebration of 50 years is coming at the right time. So thanks for doing this, and we look forward to playing any role we can. I think the results from the survey speak for themselves of how committed we are. So thank you.
Thank you. I've been watching the Predators build on the girls and women's hockey through the years, and as far as the hockey league goes, you're right. Our consultants have told us, and when you read, they're staying limited to the Northeast, but hopefully.
For now.
Hopefully they'll want to expand.
So Dan Barrett's an old
We'll
friend
be
of mine.
back in touch, right?
Yeah. Dan says he wrote this report, no disrespect to the gentleman that presented, but we spent a lot of time with them, and the biggest thing is ownership,
Yes.
local ownership. And that NWHL, I think we've already had a few people identified on a local level when they're ready.
Great.
So we're excited.
Great.
You might
Thank
know the
you.
names, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I really appreciate y'all stepping up. I didn't know what that question would bring. So I do know how much the Sports Authority appreciates all that you do. I feel the energy from each of the facilities, and I think that's going to be needed to get where we need to go. So we need you, and we appreciate you. Okay, so let's go on with this report. And I think Burke has already dealt with the comments on page 12 about why it's so great to have a women's professional team. But I do want to make sure that you all read those, because it goes to Brian's point about it's more than just the economic impact what the women's team will bring to this community. And so I want to make sure that you all look at that. And then on page 18 and 19, we just move to that, 19 and 20. I was really struck too by the corporate community response, and the consultants told us, when you see the list there and the varied list there, how quickly people responded. It was over Christmas, how enthusiastic and they were about this opportunity. It was really kind of the Nashville way that you would expect. But I do think that asking the consultants to look at the corporate response was something that really helped us in this survey. And now if you go to page 23, what I liked about this particular, looking at what our goals were for this women's sports initiative, attract and secure women's professional sports team, maximize our facility use, and promote women in athletics, professional sports in Nashville. I think this market demographic shows that we can support a team. We do have the venues, and now we know we need the third piece, and that's ownership. And finally, on page 27, I just want to highlight our consultant telling us that there is some urgency from a timing standpoint, given that the NWSL is talking about expanding. And if you, in the news reports from the WNBA, particularly in the fall, there was talk about expansion too, given their 25-year anniversary, and recently they have had a capital investment of $75 million towards the league too. So there are things happening with both of these leagues, and so our consultants once again said there might be some urgency from a timing standpoint for what we do. Which brings me now to page 28, which was the recommendations of what to do going forward. And Monica has passed out to each of you all the contract that we presently have with CAA Icon. And the ad hoc committee looked at this last week, looked at what the scope of work was. If you would turn to page, well, this is kind of hard to find. Let me just say, if you want to know, I'd be glad to show you, but it's 4 of 31 of the second set of documents about what is additional services. And so when we issued the RFP, we anticipated we might need some additional services, and Josh Thomas, our legal counsel, Monica's consulted him, and so don't let me speak out of turn, but there is room for us to engage the consultant for additional services if we want to look at these recommendations. And go forward. So I want to open this up for discussion about the recommendation of the committee, which was to ask Monica and Josh to talk with our consultants to get a sense of what the cost would be and what services they propose to be as additional services, and bring this back to the board. So let me open that up for discussion with the full board. Kim, I'm going to call on you because you were at the committee meeting. So if you want to expand on that, because you were part of that recommendation.
Sure, I think, just thank you to the facility partners. I think it's critical to pivot off of the discovery that we've seen from the excitement from our survey, and certainly welcome how we continue to keep a dialogue. You know, we're all in this together and certainly want to maximize the use of our facilities and get as many people that have not been in these facilities in and using them with their families, and be a true gathering place for little girls and their brothers as well. So I'm really excited to be a part of the committee. I think we looked at, you know, how do we continue that dialogue? I think Josh was going to look at what options that would include, in particular from the recommendations for next steps. So Josh, do you want to walk us through?
Sure. So obviously in this first phase of the contract, all CAA ICON was required to do was do the market analysis and community survey and the economic impact survey. So obviously they've done that with presenting it with the report that they've done here today. So with respect to any additional services, anything that this board would require of CAA ICON, that would be an additional cost. Right now, the way the contract reads is it would be an additional cost of basically $4.15 an hour, depending on what services that this board decides. But it is, as Margaret mentioned, an option that is available to this board if you guys do want to take the next steps. So that's community, going out into the community and talking with community stakeholders, approaching potential team owners, all that type of stuff. That is something that is contemplated in the contract, and certainly this board could approve to move forward with that if that is the area where the board wants to go.
Does any board member have, I mean, you're looking at page 28 with the recommendation, does any board member have any particular interest in an area? I know, Dan, you asked a question of the consultant for Josh to look at for what these additional services might be, what they might entail. So you have a thought about that?
Yeah, going back to that question, I think that's a salient point that I would like to have more information about. But it's very clear in this summary that the very big next step is defining and identifying an ownership group, and a strong one at that. And I think that I certainly appreciate the facilities partners that have stepped up and said that you're all in. We're going to ask for you to help us, you know, find another group that's as good as the groups that we've already got in this community. We've been very strong in that regard, but I don't think it is in our, you know, it's not in our skill set to run a process. And we're making this up, as we noted last week, we're making this up as we go along, right? We're right. The first municipality to come at this from the city perspective, raising their hand. So defining that process is new for everybody. And I think we need some help. So I'm thrilled to hear that we have the wherewithal within the existing agreement to define existing services. I guess I would ask the chair, is it in our best interest as an ad hoc committee to define some specifics about what those next steps are and then make that recommendation to the board? Is that then, and maybe this is more of a question for Monica or Josh, what would be the appropriate next step for us to collaborate, not only with our facilities partners, but with CAA ICON on what exactly those objectives would be?
Do you want, Chair, do you want to take that, or
Well, I obviously don't always mind taking a question, so I ask them and I take them at the same time. But anyway, what I'd like to do or recommend is that we ask Josh to first see, given the recommendation they've already made on page 28, have that as an initial parameter for what the additional services would be, you know, and figure out how to come back to us with that being part of it. But for me, you know, just like the additional questions you had, Dan, I mean, if there are additional things that we want to address, maybe, Josh, that you figure out how we can do that in the context of the contract. You see what I'm saying? Because I think we don't necessarily know everything we want to address right now. So I think you can probably give us the language that Dan and others are looking for to be able to expand the scope of the services if we need them. Or I think the services will probably be the same, and just be determination of the issue, probably.
Right, okay, we can definitely do that.
Now, do we need a motion? What do we need to
So
do?
I want, yes, just to be clear, are you recommending that we move forward looking into the entire executive summary, each of those steps, 7 steps?
On page 28, right. And to engage the consultant to continue with these next steps, and to negotiate a contract, or at least give us the scope of work for that, and bring it back to the board.
May I make
Yes.
a motion? Could we do that in the form of sending it to Finance Committee to look at? If we're talking about it, spending additional dollars, we
Yes, I
need to
think
go
that
through
would be
Finance.
So can I entertain a motion and to that effect, what you just said?
You want me to try to say it again?
You can say it again.
I move. Can do that. Yes, Melvin.
Okay, we're going to get the motion, and then I'll come back for questions. So just
I move that the Sports Authority engage the CAA Icon for additional services, including but not limited to what is in page 28, what they recommend as next steps, and that our staff and attorney put together a proposal or contract, whatever they see best, and bring that to the Finance Committee for consideration before it becomes to the full board.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Now discussion. Director.
My question is, with that next step, would it be best to have the consultant to develop a proposal, prepare a proposal with a cost not to proceed, because they obviously know what's needed in this next step. So I'm just trying to get an understanding that we issue, that they prepare a proposal that we could then review, a proposal with a cost not to exceed that we could then review, and not have Josh prepare a proposal, an RFP.
So I think I can address that. I want Josh to work with the consultant, but not make the proposal, number one. And two, I think whatever he brings to the Finance Committee, the Finance Committee can consider whether or not there's a not to exceed cost amount, and, you know, and look at that cost factor when it comes to the Finance Committee, because that will be what its job is to look at the finances and whether or not we think the contract is appropriately containing the cost.
Does that address your
Is that
question?
okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it will come back to finance. Any other comments, discussion?
I got one question. What is the timing of it? Are we going to be restricted by the timing phase of getting all this done and meeting other requirements of time that it takes to go through the whole process? Are we going to be on the outer limits of maybe attracting a team to Nashville?
I think we all feel a sense of urgency, like the consultant says, so hopefully we can get this back to this body within a month, because the consultants are engaged. They're fully all in what we're trying to do. But, you know, we're a public body, so we will have time constraints about how we can conduct our business. But I feel I love that question because I feel the board will do what it can to move this process on as quickly as it can.
But we've not established a deadline time right now.
I don't think so.
Any other questions? If not, there's a motion and a second on the floor, on the table. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Director Bim, for that great report.
Thank you,
And
everybody.
thank you to all of our partners. We certainly appreciate your input. There's definitely an air of excitement around Nashville and professional women's sports. So we look forward to hearing more, and hopefully that will come at our next meeting. Next on the agenda, Chair Glassmeyer, Finance Committee.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. We had, as Monica spoke about, the CMA update to what they're going to do. We had presentations from about the Bridgestone Capital Asset Management. Kyle gave us a presentation. We had an update on the Horizon Park roof repairs, and we had an update on the MSL financing of the infrastructure, and an update from Nissan Stadium. Additionally, we had a consideration of approval of the fiscal year 23 Sports Authority Department budget, and we are recommending to the full board for approval.
Okay. The motion?
That's the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion or questions? If not, all of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. Motion passes. Thank you for that
That
report.
concludes my report.
Thank you. Nashville SC MLS Stadium report.
Morning, you have me first.
Good morning. Would you please just state your name and...
My name is Cheryl Crawley Greenlee. I am the inclusion coordinator for the MLS Morrison Mesa JV. This morning gives me pleasure to be before you again to talk about the magnificent soccer stadium that is very, very visible. We are moving along very well. I'd like to say this morning, at the last meeting in November, I said that we were, okay, thank you. Let me go back. We were, at the end of the year, we were over 452 days injury-free. That was over 737,000 hours injury-free. Once we had an injury, we have to start all over again. So in 2022, we had one injury. And thank God it was a level 1 injury, fractured finger. So right now we're standing at 32 days injury-free. And that is a good thing because it tells the employees, our trade partners, that we care, that they arrive safely and they go home to their families safely. In addition to that, as you know, we have a 30% requirement for SMWBE participation. That's small minority women-owned business participation for Metro. And I always feel good when I can stand in front of you and say, at this point, the MLS is at 37% awarded contracts to SMWBEs and 37% to date spending at that rate with SMWBEs. So we are above our goal and spending at the rate of our commitments. In addition to that, we have, right at this real time, over $76.6 million in expenditures awarded to SMWBEs from our total contract. Of that, 50 million plus is with Tennessee contractors, SMWBEs. We started several months ago highlighting trade partners, SMWBE trade partners. And today I'd like to introduce you to one of our trade partners, Maryland Electric. She's a woman-owned business, electrical contractor. Maryland got a unique story that I'd like to share with you today. On December the 11th, Kingston Springs was hit by a tornado. And Maryland Electric was in the midst of that. It was totally destroyed. Her warehouse. But Maryland is very, very, very strong individual and came back with a bang. Even though she experienced that tragedy of the tornado, she is right now completing her contract with MLS. And I'd like to just read to you a statement after the tornado, after she experienced that, what she said to me about her experience as a small minority contractor on one of the largest projects in this, according to her, of her subcontractor's life. Marilyn said to me, this project had a few obstacles that no other could prepare for. A pandemic, a labor shortage, material and shipping delays, and of course a natural disaster. But one characteristic remains strong and true, and that is the Nashville strong unity. When Rita made it to her facility in Kingston Springs that morning, she was met with the community. They assisted her and her crew with food, with water, and the encouragement to keep going. She stood there looking at her facility, her brand new warehouse facility in rubble. It looked like toothpicks, with the majority of her lights, fixtures for the MLS in that facility. But she went on to say to me, we are blessed to have been able to employ over 115 local men and women and provide for their families and her own. It is a joyful feeling to arrive at the MLS soccer stadium and see the growth, the impact, and to know one day, very soon, we will be sitting in our season ticket seats with our families knowing our team was able to help build this magnificent stadium. Rita Dancy, CEO, Maryland Electric. And I also like to say that the Major League Soccer Stadium joint venture, Morrison Messer, imposed upon themselves a 22% workforce goal of minorities and women. To date, we are at 48% workforce among minorities and women. And I thank you, and the people on the project also thank you for giving them the opportunity to work on such a magnificent facility. Any questions?
Thank you for that report. Any questions from the board? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. morning. Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Madam Chair. And maybe before I start, let me address the lighting issue at Kingston Springs. And as Carol explained, that occurred back in December and was quite a challenge. But thanks to the Mortensen Messer joint venture team, to CAA Icon, our owner's rep, the electrician, and the architect, and everybody on the site, they were quickly able to assess what was damaged, what was usable. They were able to put in orders for new lighting when things were damaged, and we're down to probably less than 150 fixtures that won't be in place when we open on May 1st, but we have substitutes. And so from something that could have been very disastrous to where we are right now, it's really a tribute to everybody working very well on the project there. So we are quite grateful for that. So I'll begin talking about the stadium update. So the headlines would be, we are on track and on budget, and we're targeting substantial completion in early April. Next slide, please. This is a slide that shows the view looking from the south lot to the north to downtown. The roofing membrane is now complete. You could see that the south lot, they've even begun striping the parking lot, and that many of the pathways around the stadium are now complete, as well as the south stack there. So lots of great progress. Next slide, please. On the left here, you can see the lower seating bowl, and we've completely installed all of the seats there. And in terms of the pitch, and I've learned some new terminology, they're working on the root zone implementation, and this is so they can prepare the field to be able to install the sod in early March. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks. On the right here is an iconic shot that we were able to share last week, that once the big Nashville N logo was installed in the northeast corner, and this is really where the front door to our stadium is. Next slide, please. We've got a couple of photos here with some of the clubs on the left, and you can see that the interiors are starting to look more like an actual facility here, and so the work continues. On the right, there's one of the suites that's fully fitted out on the upper right, and the seats outside the suite area are down in the lower right. Next slide, please. On kind of the upper row of slides here, you could see the ongoing work on the exterior of the building, and in the upper right, you could see as they were getting ready to kind of raise that big N, the logo there. And on the bottom, these are some of the concession areas along the concourse, and the kitchen in the main commissary is down on the right there. Next slide, please. From a funding and budget standpoint, the majority of the revenue bond funds have now been expended. The team is paying for the remaining construction cost, and working with Monica and her team in Metro Finance, we have a really good program in place, and it's working very smoothly. Really no significant change orders in the last couple of months, and really, I keep knocking on wood, not expecting any significant ones as we get this to the finish line. Next slide, please. So the team finished the season in a really great position, and now they're preparing to start on February 28th with our third season in MLS. But probably most significantly, a lot of our efforts are focused on the May 1st stadium opening. And there's lists that are probably pages and pages long of all the different activities that are going on. But one of the key areas that we're focused on and was raised here with this board as well as the Fair Board is parking. And I'd just like to cover that at a high level. So we recognize that our fans are going to come to the stadium using multiple modes of transportation, from rideshare to bicycles, scooters. We'll even have a few that'll walk in the neighborhood, to WeGo, our public transportation, shuttles from certain areas, although we do expect that the majority of our fans will be arriving in cars. And our work on this area had started back in 2017 and 18 and has continued till today, and it'll continue on, that it's not done yet. But working with our parking experts, the fairgrounds personnel, our team, and others, we've developed a plan. And so some of the high-level components that I'll share today, it's not a static plan. And as you know, the fairgrounds is a very busy campus, and depending on the types of activities there, our parking plans will be adjusted. So for example, rideshare will be located along Craighead, and working with MNPD, we've been able to designate lanes there so that it won't impede traffic, but it'll be able to keep that moving smoothly. For parking, when we have the full campus available, which will be the case for our May 1st opening, we've divided the campus into different areas, and then fans will be directed to park depending on which area of town they're coming from. There's two primary entrances. One will be approaching from I-65 and the Wedgwood exit. The other one will be those that are coming on 440 to Nolensville. We know there'll be some other places that people will also try to come to the stadium. We've also worked and continue to work very closely with Councilman Sledge and the neighborhood groups. And we've identified that there's certain streets there where the neighbors are very, very sensitive, and the streets, frankly, are not wide enough to accommodate additional parking. And so we'll be working with MNPD, with others, and whether we actually have physical barricades or security guards located there to discourage our fans from parking there. We'll do that to kind of accommodate some of the neighbors' concerns. I think the good news is, since this is a brand new stadium and our fans really haven't developed any patterns or habits on how they're going to come to the stadium, we're going to work from the very beginning to establish some very good practices. We'll continue to reinforce those. And we know we're going to learn as we go along the way. And so we're going to continue to plan and prepare and adjust as we need to go. It is a very complex topic, and we'll work to keep everyone informed as our plans develop. So with that, I might pause on that before I start with the
I have a question.
Stadium name rights. Yes.
Yes. I can only imagine how, well, we're all excited about May 1st and getting there and being a part of it. But I would encourage, if you haven't thought about proactively, maybe reaching out to the transportation network companies and have them push out information as where the pickup and drop off in advance of just relying on the GPS and the geofence. And if you haven't thought about that, I would encourage, that might help.
Thank you. We have started to do that. And then the other thing that we do as we get closer, we'll begin to push this out. You know, obviously the fans will get specific contact, but for those that might have missed it, we'll push it out on a lot of different ways so that we can try to have the best experience possible.
And then Mary, you touched on WeGo. Can you just elaborate a little bit more? I know there was some concerns about access.
There's two stops there that are adjacent to the fairgrounds, and so there are already existing stops for those that then can, come on WeGo. There's easy access onto the site, although it's probably closer to where the expo buildings are, and then they just have to walk their way up to the stadium.
And those are two bus stops?
Two existing bus stops with WeGo that are adjacent to the fairground site today.
Thank you.
So the last item that I will cover today is something that's also very important to the club, that as we continue to work toward our opening, we're also making progress with our sponsors and with various signage. And I'm pleased to report that there's 3 areas that I'll describe that will require your approval today under our lease with the Sports Authority. The first one is the Captain's Club, and this is located on the 3rd level of the stadium. It's an all-inclusive food and beverage club with indoor seating and dedicated outside seating. Our sponsor is C-Spire. It's a technology company that's headquartered in Mississippi. They provide Wi-Fi, internet, and technology solutions to residential and business locations, and they're also beginning to grow their Nashville presence. The second one is our Premier Club, which is located on the west concourse level. It has midfield seating, a club environment, and again, another all-inclusive food and beverage location. Our sponsor is Valkyrie. It's a financial services company that's headquartered in Nashville, specializing in digital assets, and what that means is Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and other things like that. And the third area is the Supporters Bar, which is located to the right of the supporters entrance, which is just right off the Northeast Plaza. Our named sponsor here is Heineken, and they'll have signage above the bar. We continue to make progress on various other sponsorship and naming rights, and we'll be able to provide further updates in the future. And I'll pause in case there's any other questions.
So just to be clear, that is the Captain's Club, Premier Club, and the Supporters Bar.
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions for Mary before we entertain these naming rights as motion?
Motion for approval?
Okay, so,
Second.
okay. All right, that was almost too easy. Any discussion, any questions? Okay, so the motion is to approve a resolution approving the request to name premium areas at the MLS Stadium, Captain's Club and Premier Club, as well as the Supporters Bar. It's been moved and properly seconded. No discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposers, nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Mary. Okay, we are at the place where we have questions for our facilities. Are there any facility questions today for our partners? If not, we are very excited to hear from Ford Ice Center. So we'll have that report. And if you don't mind, please give us your name.
Absolutely. I'm Jennifer Benecki, the manager of diversity hockey for the Nashville Predators and the Ford Ice Centers. So almost 2 years ago, the Ford Ice Centers, both in Antioch and Bellevue, along with the rest of the world, closed their doors at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. While working from home, the staff of the Ford Ice Centers made a promise to reopen stronger and better than ever, and we did just that. In June of 2020, the Ford Ice Centers were one of the first ice rinks in the entire country to reopen. While hundreds of rinks remained closed and thousands of athletes weren't allowed to compete, it was our commitment to the health and safety of our staff and customers that allowed us to do so and become a model for others. While other rinks and programs remained off the ice or stagnant, the Ford Ice Centers grew and improved upon existing programs while also creating new ones. In the summer of 2020, the NHL and the NHL Players Association awarded the Predators a $300,000 grant from the Industry Growth Fund, the most of any NHL club in this round, to build programs focused on diversity towards our youth hockey and skating communities. Under this grant, girls of all ages learn to play hockey and continue playing in an all-female environment at no cost to them through the Preds Girls Hockey Program. Additionally, through the Grades and Blades program, student athletes have learned to skate with a focus on school attendance and academic excellence. In addition, last winter, our great partner and sponsor, Bridgestone, awarded us an additional $100,000 grant to fund the Creating Opportunities for Racial Equality, or CORE program. CORE focuses on introducing hockey players of different racial and socioeconomic backgrounds and providing scholarships for further participation in our youth league programs. With that, I believe we also have a video from the Ford Ice Centers.
The program that's been created here is so phenomenal, and the kids that come through, and even the adults. We have a huge adult component now. It's kind of a bucket list thing for them, but it's fun to be able to come out and say, I've always wanted to learn how to skate.
Grab your stick with that other hand. You're gonna put it down on the ground. All right, perfect.
I think every parent should be proud of it, you know, that your kid is able to do things that you can't imagine.
I like how they allow little girls and little boys, so I thought they were going to separate them, but they didn't, so I really like that part.
Most of these girls have never skated before, so this is going to be their very first time on the ice here with us with Preds Girls Hockey. Hopefully they fall in love with the sport and continue on playing with us.
Honestly really special. You don't see tournaments like this many places. We have 32 youth teams that are here and 4 of the top Division I college hockey programs in the country. And you see the girls packed in the stands, they're all cheering, they're all smiling and having such a good time. And it just shows the girls how much fun the game is.
I just see the kids that are here, the enthusiasm, cheering on their classmates. It's just a really special night for everybody.
Obviously, right now the guys are really excited to be on TV, and they're playing some really good hockey right now.
And it's really cool just to be able to participate in it, just to see what we can build here and who we can introduce to the ice. And individual discipline is going to deliver the drama, the excitement, and the memories that I think people will carry with them for a lifetime.
And to speak more on some of the details of our programs, we have our excellent program directors. So I'd like to invite Kristen Bonus up to speak first.
Jennifer, before you go, Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
It's nice to see you. I usually see Jennifer in more casual settings, so I didn't recognize you with the Hills. I'm used to seeing you over on the ice, but as a very proud parent of a child that's going through the girls hockey program, it's been tremendous. You talked in the video about the experience of first-time skaters on the ice, and just to see the tremendous opportunity, how welcoming your organization has been, and encouraging. I think this is my daughter's third version of that program that she's participating in, and now we're trying to figure out the next step. But it's just been tremendous, and to see firsthand the confidence that it instills in these young children, and we're just so fortunate to have the talent of the team of the Fordyce Center, and so thank you, and I'm really proud of the work you guys are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Abby's one of our success stories. She's a great little hockey player, and we look forward to getting her on a team here really soon.
She's looking forward to that. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Kristen Bonus, Director of Amateur Hockey and Fan Development with the Predators. This is still my first season, so I'm still new, still learning, but as you said, it's been a phenomenal program, a great facility to work within, and a great team. So I'm very proud to be a part of it. I apologize, my notes are all over the map because I just kept adding as we were talking. So as the video alluded to, our core program, Creating Opportunities for Racial Equality, is an 8-week co-ed program, 62 participants, and with that was a scholarship into our youth league. So we had 43 students kind of move forward. So that was 69%, which I think is a huge success. Our girls program, we're going to kind of add a little bit more to it throughout this year. We have some more street hockey programming going into play. We're going to add another learn to play, so kind of an all girls environment, which will be huge. Our development program will continue. I didn't start playing until high school, so I'm that late bloomer that we still want to be able to attract for the girls, as well as our 3v3 league over the summer. We do have a great partnership with the the junior Preds. They're now going to have 5 teams next year. So we do have a high level skate with them where it's 2 sessions, 40 girls total. I think my favorite of all these success stories with the girls is our Harpeth Hall program that's just about to start. It's a group of about 15, 20 girls that just decided they wanted to play hockey. So they started going to Play It Again Sports. They were looking through the lost and found bins at Fordyce, and they also just had some hand-me-downs from their big brother. So they kind of started on their own. They're borrowing our rental skates for their practices, our gold sticks, which are straight blade and useless, but they're still out there, they're still playing, which is huge. Sorry, I'm just getting a little cold, so a little sick. We are gonna have a girls hockey day coming up here at Bridgestone. It'll be after the Predators play with the St. Louis Blues. So the girls will come on the ice after. We'll have a try hockey for free, 2 different skills clinics as well as a game. 2 weeks ago, we had our Preds Girls Classic, which had 20 teams all throughout the country. A lot of NHL sponsored teams, which was great. We had a really fun social because girls sports, you gotta be social, you gotta have that time with it. So that was a really huge success. And then also we're trying to bring the Dream Gap Tour here too, so with the PWHPA. Yeah, that's going on. That's going on. And then Paula, do you want to come up and talk? Well, I mean.
Any questions for Christy?
Yeah, any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel like I'm already super emotional, and so
Hi. It started with Teresa. Wow. I mean, I have not stopped crying. I'm really thankful for this today, but I'll take it up. We've had an amazing 2 years. Am I a little emotional about it? Yeah. I think every day for 2 years, there wasn't one day I didn't go to my car and put my hands in the steering wheel and say, we did the best job, we were safe, everybody had fun, we did it, we did it, we did it. I still do that to this day. We still have great guest care, we still have our best knowledge, our best expertise in all parts of skating. Our team works together incredibly well, like we're all supportive of each other. We are pandemic proof, nobody can touch us. Our safety is our top priority, and it has been. And along with that, I think our DEI, like just our community focus, driven by joy and compassion, has been kind of what's really pushed me through all of this. I don't really need a job. Like, I could just go sell worms and beer, and I love what I do with these people. So just know that. We've come so far with all of our, we went from 0 athletes when we opened again to number 2 in the country. There was a lot of people that weren't even willing to do learn to skate. We did it. We were crawling on our hands and knees. I mean, 3-year-olds, I'm teaching 3-year-olds in a school of 500. It's difficult. You can't touch them. You have to social distance. We created so many fun games with my staff. We were on Zooms. We were doing everything. We were crawling on our bellies like reptiles across the ice with 3-year-olds, but they were still on the ice. And by week 3, they were on their own. It was amazing. We also never wanted to be in this position ever again. We designed virtual classes. With our NHL IGF fund, we allowed 30 kids to do a virtual class where we put skates. They came in, got measured for skates. We sent them to their houses. They did 7 weeks of learn to skate in their living room, tying their skates, doing every skill. And then on week 8, we brought them into the rink for their very first time. And it was really successful. They, the whole process sped up the learning process. So that was exciting. Then our grades and blades, which was super exciting for me. I was asked to come up with an idea on how we could get back to our community. 100% it just, for me, my parents didn't have enough money to send me to the Olympics. So it was all about education and attendance for me. If I kept those 2 things up, I could skate as long as I wanted to. So we designed that and came up with, it's all for, the whole program is designed for, well, I'll just read it. It's in 42 font, which is exciting. Grades and Blades, presented by Fifth Third Bank. We found a beautiful sponsor as well. A free skating program taught in a joyful, respectful, and diverse setting where individual uniqueness is welcomed and celebrated. Athletes who receive good grades and good attendance in school are rewarded for their efforts. Our mission is to create leaders of the future through skating skills, time management, and life skills. But most important, the program provides a position environment filled with mentorship and encouragement to help guide every athlete's unique journey on and off the ice. I think that's super important. Like I said, I wasn't an Olympian, but I've celebrated 50 years in this sport since I was 6 years old, and that, do the math. Well, no, wait. I might even be a little older than that. Okay. Anyways, it's a free program for anybody, and our outreach includes community neighborhoods challenged by financial diversity, the LGBTQ community, gender equality community, and our adaptive community. The ones who have suffered the most during this pandemic with our program, the Scott Hamilton Academy program, has been the adaptive skaters. They are really vulnerable to catching the virus because they have so many underlying conditions. So we offered some private ice very, very early in the morning where they could come in and just get on the ice. They've missed it so terribly bad. They're all starting to come back, very small. We were up to 24, and I think we're up to 8 again now. So that's been the hardest one hit, and we're excited for that to come back. Let's see. Oh, nationals, how about that? If you were here, you saw an Olympian in the making. He was here. Nathan Chen just won gold. Super exciting. It was 1 week of fierce skating, the kind with toe picks. Super exciting for me. Always. It was a lot of fun. I have never passed so many PCR tests in my life. And every one I took, I'm like, yeah, nailed another one. I was like, I haven't sweated that bad since my last pregnancy test.
28 years ago. It was amazing. So, anyways, I hope everybody got out to see all that. It was really, really fun. I know that all of our skaters really loved it. They were all sweepers during the event. They got to go pick up the little toys. We had 4 athletes from the Scott Hamilton Skating Club participate. They placed really well. We're super proud of that. And then I think through that also, I met a great partner in the DEI, U.S. Figure Skating designed a DEI task force, and they came to me about 2.5, 3 months ago, and they said, we want to partner with you. Let's get some kids in the facility. We got 400 kids from the community into the facility to watch figure skating for the very first time ever. And they are now, we've been pushing it out. All of these organizations are now flooding in for our Grades and Blades program, and we're super excited to have every one of them. We sat up in the audience and we taught them some different things on what they should be looking for, and it was already educational. It was awesome. So I think that's it. Okay, yeah, I think so. Sorry I cried. Okay. Thank you so much. All right, you. And Sean.
I'm not going to cry, but if you don't smile after listening to Paul speak, there's something dead inside of you. But the same goes for Ford Ice Center. You know, when we agreed to build the first one, I'm looking at you, Margaret, you were here, Monica, you were here, Kim, you were here, Jad just yelled about Bellevue, so I'd build one there. Kathy, you were obviously here too. But that was 8 years ago. None of us thought we were doing anything more than freezing some water, getting maybe some kids a little bit more access to a really cool sport. Maybe some kids, learn to skate. Maybe they could do couple skate when they're 12 or 13 awkwardly at some point. And what we've created is something so much bigger. I'm so glad Danny's not here because he would just blabbering on and on and on. He's got the COVID, so we're not that safe, by the way, Paula. He's watching from home right now on Channel 3. But the reason we're so successful are the 3 ladies you just heard from and the dozens of people underneath them. That passion is incredible. What none of them said is who and what they are. So not to embarrass you at all, but Kristen decided to leave the Stanley Cup champions to come to Nashville to do something special. I mean, you left Tampa to be here. She's also a multi-generational hockey family. Her father served behind the bench for more games than any man that's ever coached in the NHL. She chose to be here instead of other markets to do special things. J-Bo, I can say this because Bill Wickett's not here, played at Ohio State. She played at the very highest level for women at that time. She chose to be here to model different things for young girls, and everything we've talked about, each month that we bring someone out and honor them, what do we hear? There was someone there for them, and now they've paid it forward or pushed it forward, as our coach said today. And then Paula, who has competed at the highest levels all over the world. I mean, all over the world as a competitor and as a coach. And she chose to come here to build the Scott Hamilton Skating Academy. And then it's taken it to a whole nother level with our diversity. And it's passionate and it's just so much fun. So once we finally told, Mr. Duncan to shut up, we built one in Bellevue. And we're building another one right now in Sumner County. We're going to announce one in Southern County pretty soon. We're in the middle of building one up in Montgomery County. It all happened because you guys said, yes, let's do it. It was just 8 or 9 years ago. But what we're doing is changing lives. We invest $500,000, $600,000 a year in scholarships and free programs. Our players invest about $300,000 a year to make it easier for people that aren't as talented as them or didn't have ice in their backyard to play. And then our partners in Fifth Third and Bridgestone, again, between them are writing close to $300,000 worth of checks. So people are making a difference in people's lives every single day, whether you go on to play college or professional, or you just have a great story when you're 40 years old and singing glory days, that when you were 11 years old, you blocked that one puck that saved, Polk City High City Championship. It's a really cool thing, but we're just seeing the start of it right now. And again, it's because those 3 ladies and everyone that works for them. And I guess to a small degree, Danny Butler too. But again, I just wanted to come up here and thank them, applaud them in front of all you, because if you're having a bad day, talk to Paula, because you'll be better. If you're really having a bad week, go out to Ford Ice Center. I mean, seriously, go out there for a cup of coffee, a hot dog, a beer. Don't do anything but walk around, and you will see kids leaving there happy. You will see a mom hugging their 17-year-old son or daughter who's never played a sport in their life, but started playing hockey last year in the JV program, who scored his first goal. And that happened actually on our ice the other day with the JV championships that Father Ryan won, coached by Stephen Henry. And it was so much fun. Literally, the kid that scored never skated before and never played a sport before, and his mother and father are in the stands crying. They're doing that every single day. So get on out there, have fun, and Kyle, good luck following J-Bo.
So I just want to say thank you to Fordyce, thank you, Sean, but thank you to the team. Ladies, we're so glad that you came at the end because for a long meeting, you actually picked up the morale, gave us some energy, and we're going to close out on a high. So thank you for that report. It was awesome. I do remember when Fordyce was like frozen water and goodwill. So to see the programs and the work and the effort that's gone into building that facility out, we're just so excited, and we congratulate you. Any comments from the board?
Well, all I have to say, Paula, is that I'm emotional too today. And so that was a great start because you've lived through a lot of years with women playing sports. And I could really feel from all three of you, and Sean, in your leadership, what you've accomplished. It's truly something that is so appreciated by this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, this concludes our agenda, and I'd like to thank the members of the board, the Sports Authority staff, Metro Legal and Finance, our facility team representatives, and project managers for your attendance. Next full board meeting is scheduled for March 10th. Please note that this is a week earlier than usual, and we're making this adjustment because the next week is actually spring break for a number of schools in the system. So if there is no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you all for coming.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.